And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Happy Friday to you on Memorial Weekend. And what a glorious weekend it appears that it will be in California. We've been getting pretty consistent rain. I don't want to jinx it by calling it an El Nino, but it is welcome nonetheless, the moisture. It's funny, up in the mountains where I live, in the amazing little burg of Twin Peaks, I was walking my dog, and I can't believe how much moisture was retained by the ground and all the plants and everything else just from the fog. Because for a couple of days, we've just been living in the clouds. We are living in the fog, not in the same way that they are in Sacramento or Washington, D.C., but it sometimes, even when it doesn't rain, that fog certainly is providing needed and necessary and very welcome moisture. Hey, if you're hitting the highway, I'm not going to let Bill Clinton say that he feels your pain, because I actually feel your pain, because you are, no, it is not a conspiracy. You are paying more for gasoline than they are anywhere else in the country. Gasoline has gone up 22 cents nationwide. It's gone up 53 cents in the state of California.
Yeah, since last night.
Well, not... Okay, maybe that's the perception of the man on the street. But it hasn't gone up 53 cents since last night. But it's gone up a ton. And I mean, didn't it just seem like we had gas under $3?
Yeah, just a couple months ago, and now it's $3.97 on the street down here.
No, it's over $4 now.
Oh,
all over the place.
Well, then I saw a cheap station.
Yeah, you got you got to get out a little bit more. But I went to Arizona, I believe it was earlier this year or late last year, and actually paid, I think it was late last year, paid a very small amount for, I actually took a picture of it. It was, I think I paid $2.79 or something like that when prices in California were still well over $4. And lo and behold, the minute that the hidden gas tax, the one that goes to the high-speed rail, the one that goes to California Air Resources Board, that is generated by them supposedly to address the global ice age, global warming, global cooling, global we don't know what the hell it's doing, climate change crowd. It's sorry, I'm having to do something here on the computer. I just don't multitask as well as my wife does. Anyway, we now have the show up. So if you wanted to call in, 323-746-TALK, that's the number, 323-746-8255. But there's a whole lot of people out on the highways, and isn't it funny how the hidden gas tax that I was just referring to, which somehow the minute it was enacted, the minute that it was levied on the gas refiners and the producers, it almost seemed as if overnight gas prices dropped. And they dropped for reasons that are based 9,000 miles away, having to do with OPEC making a decision to try to declare economic war in the United States oil market. They decided they wanted to crash the U.S. Domestic production of oil and make it foolish to produce oil here because you could get it so cheap overseas. And you know that, and you know what? That's what you can do. That's what happens in a market-based economy. I won't call it a free market because if there ever was a rigged market, the oil market has very few competitors, and the government has mandated so many restrictions, so many guidelines, so many absolute laws over the oil companies whom they seem to hate. They have a love-hate relationship. They love to take the money, and they love to levy taxes. They got all kinds of ideas to levy more taxes, like an oil severance tax, which, once again, if they levy an oil severance tax, you might think you're stealing from the rich guys, but you're not. You're stealing from yourself. You will pay for it, just like you will pay, and you are going to pay. And funny how it all kicked in for Memorial Weekend when they know most ordinary Americans get in their cars for the first time maybe of the year, and they take a road trip. And a lot of people are taking road trips. We had a friend stop by the Radio Free California Network studios, and she was sounding a little bit jealous about how people were running off in their RVs, and then she saw 3 of them broken down on the side of the road, getting towed away. And I have a feeling that would be mine. Use it once a year, and it doesn't work when you need it to. But look, Memorial Weekend is about a whole lot more than barbecues and getting in your RV and going and having family fun and taking a road trip. It's about a lot more than oil companies sticking it to you. It's about a lot more than car sales and mattress sales. It's about taking a moment to be grateful, to remember those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we might live free. It is about remembering the heroism and the courage of so many Americans who have gone out on the battlefield, who have stood shoulder to shoulder against tyranny and against dictators and against evil and against forces of oppression. And they have paid a sacrifice that most of us will never understand, because most Americans are barely willing to even show up and vote anymore. And I'm not trying to discourage you right now. I'm trying to make you remember. I want you to understand the gravity of what this time that we set aside is all about. It's about taking a moment to say thank you. And one of the ways you can do it is raise the flag, the American flag. There's a whole lot of people that want to stomp on it. Well, they damn well better not do it in my presence this weekend, because it may be the last thing they do. And that's not a threat. That's a promise. Because there are those who have laid down their lives that we might live free. We owe it to them to honor that flag. And if you want to protest it, that's your First Amendment right. But there are consequences to being stupid. As a matter of fact, hold up that. We got this this picture frame in here that one of our friends gave us. Could you hold it up to the window so I can read it? The one over there on the table. Yeah, it says, life is hard. It's harder if you're stupid. That's just my shout out to those who want to stomp the American flag on Memorial Weekend. So if you are dumb enough to try to do that on this weekend, you will very likely not finish your protest in the same condition you started it. Let me just say that. because there's a whole lot of Americans that have no tolerance for that kind of stupidity, even though it is your right. It's your right. And yes, we send people into harm's way to defend and protect this country and the Constitution that guarantees the rights of the citizen against the government so that the government cannot infringe on those. But it also, there's also a responsibility involved in that. Freedom is not just free. You have an obligation. It requires a moral and a courageous people to safeguard it and to protect it. But this weekend is about those who paid that ultimate price. And the other thing that we can do, look, a lot of us have children, we have neighbors, we have nieces and nephews who are serving in the armed forces today, who are current members. We also have veterans. We have a veteran right here in this office sitting across from me, Bethany Nosko, the Noskinator, served. It's a time when you say thank you for your service. Because that is another way to honor those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice, is by supporting and thanking those who are still with us, that we are still blessed to have among us. So we've got a great show planned for you coming up. We are going to have an incredible activist out of the state of Oregon who turned a blue state red, white, and blue. You don't want to miss it. 323-746-TALK if you want to get in on the action.
I'm Barack Obama, and I don't always listen to talk radio. But when I do, it's the Tim Donnelly Show.
So the headline on Drudge this morning was Obama trade. I kind of like that. It's a takeoff on Obamacare, but Obama trade kept secret. And you have the Congress voting on something when they don't even know what's in it. I mean, I don't get it. These are the Republicans were supposed to be the last line of defense against this kind of what's the right word? It's not illegal, but it's wrong. This okay, help me out here, Nosko. Give me a word. Well, it's stupid. It's idiotic. It is. They're passing things they haven't even seen. It would be like buying a house sight unseen.
Asinine.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I like that. So the Republicans are backing Obama's play, and the President of the United States wants to craft a trade deal, but he doesn't want anybody to know what the terms of the deal are. Well, I'm sorry, but that ain't the deal. When the Constitution was written, trade deals go through the Senate. And the senators need to be able to read it, and they need to be able to discuss it. They need to be able to debate it. How can you debate something when you can't even take notes on it? When you're forbidden and you have to leave the notes with an armed guard? Why are they putting up with this? It's like the Republicans haven't figured out, hey, you were sent there not because we liked your haircut, not because we thought you were intelligent, not because we thought you were even true to us, but because you said you would fight Obama and be a check and balance to his executive tyranny. Because he thinks that he can just ramrod and railroad this trade deal on the American people. To have someone like Orrin Hatch hatching such idiotic, asinine ideas like saying you have to pass it to find out what's in it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't look all shocked in there in the production booth, but that was a Republican who, last time I checked, the Republicans control the U.S. Senate.
That sounds like a really sneaky pickup line, Tim.
Well, look, I don't recommend it to you young men out there that are trying to, to find, the love of your life. That isn't. But I thought maybe the Republicans were going to reform themselves and stop sounding like a shady pickup line and start sounding a lot more like they respected and wanted a long-term relationship with the American public, with the citizens, with the voters, with those of us who are working hard and paying for all this BS that they're doing. But I guess they never learn. And it's kind of funny. But the next story on Drudge was congressional approval rating at an all-time low. I think these two concepts are intrinsically connected. When you are disrespectful of those who sent you to Washington to represent them. Here's Orrin Hatch's exact comment. I was searching through the stack of stuff here to find it. Yes, we are very green here at the Radio Free California Network. I don't know. We only print out what's necessary. I don't know what's fully in the trade package itself. That's what Orrin Hatch said. He said, I don't know fully what's in the Trans-Pacific Partnership myself. Well, I like what Elizabeth Warren and Joe Manchin out of West Virginia and Elizabeth Warren out of Massachusetts. Those senators are Democrats, by the way. Yes. If you're just tuning in, you might need to, if it's going to offend you or your children that I'm actually going to praise some Democrats, you might want to change the channel. But I praise anybody who does the right thing. And they have demanded and put forth a bill that would require Obama to release the text of the entire trade package to the public, because they believe, I know they didn't believe this when Obamacare was passed, because they knew if the people knew what was in it, then they would oppose it. Well, now you have the Republicans backing Obama to hide and cover up what is really in this trade deal until it's too late. And that tells me that there's something rotten in it. And it also tells me we have not been able to get a single Republican to speak out on this measure. We've seen a few who have made some guarded comments from Washington, D.C., but you don't have anybody beating the bushes, making the talk show circuits and releasing all of the details. And that's what we need to know. Because we can't fight something. We can't discuss something. We can't debate something. We can't consider something. And it's very simple. I mean, they rule at our consent. I can't even believe what I'm reading. I find myself in agreement with Senator Barbara Boxer. This has to be a first. Secrecy is no good. Yeah, I agree. Secrecy in government is a recipe for tyranny. Well, We will keep you apprised on this. They were trying to pull some shenanigans on this before the weekend hit, and the Congress left town, and the Senate were the only ones who could actually do anything, and their hands were tied. So they were either going to have to pass it through sight unseen, or they're going to have to go home without forcing a deal on the American people. I hope the latter is true. 323-746-TALK if you want to be part of the conversation. Tim Donnelly Show continues right after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Hey, it is a Getaway Friday, and I don't think Hillary Clinton can get away from the media fast enough. She
hasn't she been gone this whole time?
Well, look, I mean, I want to say her strategy, and given the public's complete lack of attention to politics most of the time, except for a very short period, a very short window leading up to the actual election, and we are not in that window. The strategy is, hey, just ignore it. Don't give them the gotcha moment, because there's so many gotcha moments that for Hillary, it's a disaster to talk to the press right now. All it can do is hurt her. So her advisors have said, look, shut up. Like, literally, shut up. Or maybe they said, shut the bleep up. But whatever they said to her, it's working to some extent. But every time she opens her mouth, her poll numbers go down. So here's the headline today. Hillary Clinton less popular now than at any time since 2008. In a poll from the Pew Research Center, Clinton's favorability has plunged to 49%, the lowest since 2008, when she mounted her unsuccessful run for the White House, and her rating sat at 48%. 47% of respondents had an unfavorable opinion of her in the poll. And previously, she sat at 66% favorability back in 2009, November 2009, when she became Secretary of State. But her approval rating has been dropping steadily ever since. %86% of Democrats approved of her last August, compared to 77% now. 27% of GOP voters approved of her then, as opposed to 17% currently. Yeah, it ain't good for Hillary Clinton. And let me go through the stack of stuff here, and I had something else on Hillary. Yeah, let me offer an explanation. It's an obvious one, perhaps. For one thing, Elizabeth Warren is she's beating all the Republicans in California in a recent poll. I'll get to that in a minute. So that's kind of interesting. I think people want a true believer. They don't want somebody who's just campaigning in a bubble, talking to people that already agree with you, only taking carefully coiffed questions from hand-picked reporters who will be nice to you. And look, one of the things about the American public is they can smell a rat. When you're being fake, when you're trying to pull off what is clearly an orchestrated, pre-rehearsed campaign where you stop somewhere and pretend to be a real person, but you've already sent and planted people in the audience, and you know it. If you have to tell people you're being authentic, then you're in trouble. And so I think Hillary is she's in big trouble. She's in big trouble with people who support her. She's in big trouble with the general public. And I think that spells trouble for the Democrats at large, but not for Elizabeth Warren, who seems to be pulling away. She's got 13% of Democrats would support Elizabeth Warren right now. So she's got some work to do with her own group, because most of them are behind Hillary. But she's actually beating all of the Republicans in the state of California, which is rather remarkable. So I think 2016 is going to wind up being a very interesting year, especially if things continue on this, in this vein. So the California drought is, there was an interesting story out of the Central Valley, because the State Water Resources Board has decided to cut off all water to the farmers. Even those who hold senior water rights will literally be completely cut off. And so they came back and said, look, we already know you're not going to give us anything, so we're willing to take 25% of the water that you owe us in exchange for no future cuts. You know, it's kind of sad when the farmers have to beg, hat in... Hold on, I'm going to take my hat off, and hat in hand. Yes, and by the way, this is currently an NRA hat, but I have been promised from my good friend Brandon Combs a Firearms Policy Coalition hat, and I told him it has got to look cool, because I'm going to take pictures of it and put it up. But we got T-shirts from Firearms Policy Coalition today, and before the show is out, we will have some pictures up on our website, on our Instagram, and you will be able to check them out and see if you want to get that same gear, because hey, there is no point in wearing a T-shirt that has a message on it unless it is a message of freedom. And I love their shirts. They've got some great hold up one of the shirts, Bethany. I'll tell you what it says on it, then you can go look at it. Yeah, the female shirts say they're gray with like white writing, and then it's gun rights equal civil rights. And the equal is pink, which I'm sure will please some on the extreme left who will probably be offended. and then the male shirt I'll have to show you after the next break because it's behind me and I would have to turn away from the microphone to grab it. But there's all kinds of things going on, even though I know everybody's going away for a weekend and you don't want to think about any of this crazy stuff. Keep praying for rain because we need it. We need it for these poor farmers that are trying to survive. We're going to have a farmer on next week talking about how this whole system works. I mean, you've got very complex system of water rights that go back, dating back over 100 years. And when you have the government being able to, in the name of an emergency, deny you your right to a natural resource like water, while at the exact same time they're letting out water on behalf of a fish because the federal government has superseded our own state's control of our own water. And when that happens, and when we allow that to happen, and then if it stands, it becomes sort of like common law. After a period of time, if you allow somebody to encroach your property and they put a fence across your own land or right up to and beyond the point, the little buffer zone where they're not supposed to put a fence, but if you allow them to do it and you allow it to stand for enough time, that becomes their land. And these farmers are being smart because they're negotiating in a way that will secure their rights. Because if they cut their rights off altogether, they will never get those rights back. That is my belief, and I'm sure it's the belief of many of them. And we'll have an expert on, somebody who is actually affected by this next week. But for right now, let's just pray that it continues to rain. Even if it rains on your weekend plans, you should be smiling and grateful and taking pictures in the rain. And guess what? You can save money on all that sunblock. You know, that stuff costs a fortune. I was going to my son's baseball game the other day, and I had my pockets full of stuff, and I dropped my sunblock somewhere. By the way, if you found it, I'd like to have it back. But that stuff's like $8 a tube, and you know, it's like a security blanket for some of us white people when we go out in the sun. I want to stay the color that I was born. Stop laughing in there. The production booth is having a little bit of fun at my expense. 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255. And if you want to call in, and if you're driving by on the freeway, tell us where you're headed and tell us how much you paid for gas. 323-746-TALK.
I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I got the big muscle. They call me the Governor.
Hey, if you are just tuning in, you missed the first hour, but you know what? You're just in time to hear the second two. This is the Radio Free California Network. You're listening to the Tim Donnelly Show, and our call-in number is 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255. And it is one of those days when more Americans get in their cars and hit the highways. That is, of course, as long as you aren't in California where they're full of potholes and where Governor Brown took all the money and poured it into some stupid high-speed rail project and bribing all kinds of people instead of building roads. And there you go. Yeah, like how many of you would like to take a train? Well, I don't even think that's a fair question. I don't think anybody wants to ride a train right now after 8 people died on Amtrak, especially a government-controlled train. We ought to do a poll on that on our website and find out exactly how many people would actually ride the high-speed rail. I know the government is going to subsidize the tickets and make it super cheap, but are you willing to put your life in the hands of the people who run Amtrak, basically? Well, that's the question.
Yeah, until you end up on a Greyhound in the middle of Central California.
That's if you're lucky. If you're not so lucky, you may end up underground. You may end up 6 feet underground. I mean, and then of course they're out there blaming the lack of infrastructure and the lack of investment and mad at the taxpayers because they haven't given enough money to a government control. This is how the left works. They want more and more control. They always, inevitably, inexorably, there's never a time when they don't want more of your money, ever. And, you know, in California, as I was talking about the gas prices before, and by the way, if you are paying over $4 a gallon, I want you to take a picture when you're filling up at the pump and then tag us at Tim Donnelly Show, which is our Instagram. It's the same thing for our Twitter. You can put hashtag, you can put at, whatever. Just tag us because we'd like to see. I want to see what the highest gas price that we can find in California, and then if you can send me the lowest. And of course, it's always going to be people traveling out of state. We'll probably get one from North Dakota that's $1 cheaper. But here's the thing, and a lot of people might be actually okay paying the global warming tax, the hidden global warming tax on your gasoline, if they thought they were going to do something that would actually help with the global warming crisis, right? Well, see, at the Tim Donnelly Show, we call it the global warming. We actually call it the global cooling, global warming. They don't know what the hell it is doing, climate change crisis. But it's a hoax. It is a fraud. It is something that's been completely made up out of whole cloth. And you might say, well, you know what? I read this, all these super intelligent scientists. Well, the super intelligent scientists can debate all they want. But it's really hard to debate out and out fraud. And there have been numerous reports. There's another one out this week. And this one is from the Heartland Institute, that many of the countries in which the temperatures were taken were inflated. So if they raised the temperature and you make your assumptions off of the data that is false and incorrect, because it's not human error, it's human cheating, because somebody cheated it. Somebody was paid to raise the temperature so that they could continue. And if you think about what they're able to do in the name of global warming, climate change, and all the rest, they are able to deprive you of massive amounts of capital, and they are able to take away more and more of your freedom for the so-called common good, the public good. And a lot of people have fallen victim to this. They've brainwashed our kids in schools for years. I'll never forget my son Daniel when he was 12 years old. And this came on the radio, and he said, "Dad, that's just a hoax." I was like, out of the mouth of babes, the truth is always much simpler. And the bottom line is, there are other studies that have been done that if we did everything the left wants to do in California, it would cost us $450 billion in capital, in lost income, in lost revenue to the state over 20 years, in lost earnings, all to change the temperature maybe by 0.1%. Well, that ain't going to help anybody. And it isn't worth doing that, especially when everything you're fighting, there are no borders around California that are going to keep the hot air out from other countries. Bottom line, 323-746-TALK. Stay tuned.
Broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Radio Free California, where we stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. And you need to keep that website handy because we post up all of our information on guests, anything that we're doing in terms of a live rally or a live remote. And it's a great way to connect. You can hook up with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. As a matter of fact, we're going to have some photos going up on Instagram shortly if you want to see the Firearm Policy Coalition's new T-shirts being modeled by the Tim Donnelly team. And they look pretty good. They got a great message. It's provocative. There's no point in having a message on a T-shirt if it isn't provocative, if it doesn't have a point. It's like giving a 20-minute speech. If you don't have a point, what's the point? And, well, hopefully I'm not offending too many politicians, but I cannot tell you how many people I've heard blather on who've never make any significant policy point of any kind, but they think we just want to hear them talk. The Judicial Watch, which is I don't know if you call them an activist group, but they work really hard on legal, on essentially fighting the government to release information, what are called Freedom of Information Act requests. And they have come up with some pretty astonishing information on what was known in Benghazi ahead of time. And it is a really disturbing report. And I'm not going to get into it in its full detail here because we're going to have a guest on talking about a completely different topic. But I'm working on getting someone on who will discuss this next week. But you ought to go check it out because it's to find out that they knew 10 days in advance that something was coming is really disheartening, especially when you have a presidential candidate like Hillary Clinton who says, what difference does it make? As a matter of fact, Nosco, you got to get that clip of Hillary saying, what difference does it make? For those of you who tuned in on Tuesday and you heard that I dedicated that show to former state senator and assemblyman from the 59th District, Dick Mountjoy, his services are going to be held this coming Tuesday, so right after Memorial Day, the day after. Tuesday at 11 a.m. in Sierra Madre at the Sierra Madre Congressional Church, which is on Sierra Madre Boulevard. I told you that I would come back and let you know this information. If you wanted to pay your respects, I'm sure that would be appreciated. But it is the Sierra Madre Congressional Church, 11 a.m. on Tuesday, the 26th of May. So it's this Tuesday. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people. He touched a lot of lives. I mean, we played you a clip from him from yesterday that, this is a guy that stood up and he was a firebrand. He also had an incredible sense of humor, and he will be missed. He is certainly one of a kind. While Bethany's working on getting our guest, I'm going to talk about something. There's a counterintuitive story that was published earlier this week that for many American states, it's like the recession never ended. And, I have a simple theory on that. But before that, I'm going to read you a little bit from it. 6 years after the recession ended, many U.S. states are hard-pressed to balance budgets because of a sluggish recovery and their own poor policy decisions. The fiscal fragility raises questions about how they will weather the next economic downturn. A majority of states are making cuts, tapping reserves, or facing shortfalls despite an improving national economy, stock markets at record levels, according to Standard & Poor's, and a Nelson A. Rockefeller Institute of Government. It's state revenue hasn't rebounded to a pre-recession peak, adjusted for inflation and other factors are putting major pressures on budgets. Alaska, Oklahoma, and energy-producing states saw receipts fall with global oil prices. Kansas overestimated revenue after tax cuts, while New Jersey faces a shortfall thanks to unfunded pension liabilities. Even some Republican governors have championed tax increases to avoid further diminishing services curtailed during the 18-month recession, the deepest downturn since the Great Depression. Well, this is the kind of propaganda that the left loves to misinterpret. First of all, I read an incredible story out of Kansas, and in Kansas, they cut taxes. And they cut taxes rather dramatically, and wages went up. So people actually had more money. I mean, isn't that the whole point? For the average person to have more money in their pocket? And when I hear about all these states struggling, what they're really saying is that the state government is spending more money than it's taking in. That's what they're saying. They're not saying the economy sucks. They're saying the state government is spending too much. Well, that's because we have people addicted to government programs. We have so many people who are dependent on the government, and we haven't seen the kind of tough love that is necessary. I mean, let me give you an example. When I was in my own small business, when I was, running a small manufacturing company, it was a sink or swim union. It's that simple. There was no public sector union that was going to fight so that I could make money, even if there weren't revenues coming into my company. That doesn't make any sense. And the bottom line is the government is spending too damn much money on handouts to people who don't work, or handouts to the rich, handouts to their buddies, to their cronies. And when they're doing that, then they never want to cut that. They only focus on the fact you are not paying enough. That's their own prejudice, their own bias when it comes to that. We've seen that here in California. They continually tell us we don't have a revenue or we don't have a spending problem. They say we have a revenue problem. You guys aren't giving us enough of your money. It's like a holdup, which is why I describe the government as a mafia. And hey, I'm going to bring on my good friend who I was telling you about earlier, Cynthia Kendall from Oregon, who through her efforts turned a blue state red, white, and blue. Hey, Cynthia, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hi, Tim. Thank you for having me on.
It is wonderful to have you on. Thank you for sharing some of the precipitation that you guys always enjoy up there, down here with us in Southern California.
Oh, you're quite welcome. That was a special order.
Hey, so you, what part of Oregon do you reside in?
I live in the capital city of Salem.
So, you living in the capital city, are you a professional lobbyist? Are you a professional?
I'm a resident of the Capitol while it's in session. It seems I'm there a lot. I am not a professional lobbyist. I'm not paid for anything that I do. I just care enough that I can't not be there as laws are being made that affect our whole state.
Well, I met you in Washington, D.C. at a conference on illegal immigration, and you were attempting at that time to do a ballot initiative to essentially referend or repeal a driver's license card, a driver's card for illegals in your state, in the state of Oregon.
That's correct.
And
I can give you a little history on that.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a 2-minute synopsis? Then we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back with a fuller story.
Okay. Well, in 2008, our Democrat governor saw the light and felt that it was important that Oregon driver's licenses begin to move towards the Real ID Act, and they passed a law that required that an applicant show proof of legal presence in Oregon to obtain an Oregon driver's license. And that went into effect in 2008. And from almost the time that law was signed, the powers that be worked to try and find a way around it, because driver's licenses for people that were here illegally were beginning to expire, and they could no longer renew them. And they kept coming up with all these versions of these bills, and because of the makeup of our legislature, we were able to beat them back until 2013. So on May Day of 2012, Brad Avakian, who is our Bureau of Labor and Industries Commissioner, read a letter on the steps of our Capitol at the May Day rally that the governor was looking for a way to make certain that all Oregonians, and I'm using air quotes here, all Oregonians would be able to obtain a driver's license. And that was the beginning of the problem that we faced with the new law that came out the following session.
Wow. Well, you've got an incredible story. Let's take a quick break. And then I want to get into more detail because I think it's going to shock most Californians that are listening. And it will encourage many that an ordinary citizen like yourself can get involved and make such a huge difference. So I'm going to put you on hold, and we'll continue with Cynthia Kendall who turned a blue state red, white, and blue. More coming up after the break.
I'm Barack Obama, and I'm the #1 fan of the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hey, welcome back to Radio Free California. We are talking to Cynthia Kendall of Oregon, who... Cynthia, somebody called you. You were introduced as an ordinary housewife who basically took the Capitol by storm, and you got a standing ovation. But that's what you were, right? You were just somebody who got involved out of the concerns that you had for the safety of your state and concerns you had for the direction your state was heading in.
That's absolutely right. I became involved with Oregonians for Immigration Reform, which is a statewide. Immigration is our only issue that we deal with, stopping illegal immigration and reducing legal immigration to a more sustainable level. Instead of 1 million legal immigrants, we'd like to reduce that down to where we were before at about 250,000 per year, and certainly stopping illegal immigration. So my husband and I joined Oregonians for Immigration Reform and attended meetings periodically. And I think for the majority of people, we simply don't know how bad the situation is. And I hear this all the time. I speak all over the state, and people's jaws drop. They just have no idea what's actually going on. So our organization works to educate citizens, and we work to activate citizens, because nothing scares a politician more than their constituents being educated. Excuse me. So that's what we do. And as I got in deeper and deeper, I went to Washington, D.C. to fairs Hold Their Feet to the Fire. I went to a couple of other events, and I got on the board of OFER, and shortly after that I was moved into took over. Our president wanted to step down and move over into another position because we were growing so fast. And so I took over the president's position, and he took over the communications coordinator, did all the radio interviews and everything. And I did all the traveling and the speaking engagements.
Well, and after I met you in Washington, D.C., you said you were going to work on this referendum, essentially, to overturn a terrible law that had been put in place. And
well, the Democrats took control of our legislature. And so there were enough votes to pass the driver card bill with no Republicans going over to the other side. And I think that might have been one of the more disturbing things to me, is that so many Republicans, in the name of, we want to look like we're working together, jumped the fence and joined in with the Democrats. And what that did was it gave our opposition the ability to say this was a bipartisan effort. And that's really difficult to challenge when people saying, well, the Republicans and the Democrats voted for it.
Well, yeah, because a lot of the Republicans are really hoping that the Democrats will pull off a full amnesty, and then they'll say, well, we fought it the whole way and we lost out, and golly gee willikers. Yes. But the truth is much darker. The truth is, and I know this from running for governor in the state of California, but also being in politics, you know this from your experience there in Oregon, that the big money, the Soros-type money on the Republican side doesn't support anyone unless they support amnesty and driver's licenses for illegals and massive increases in everything, with no control, no consideration for the ordinary citizen or the impact on communities or anything else, or on resources. I mean, we've got a drought here in California.
Absolutely right. Yes.
So
it's a conflict to me, to the people, the environmentalists, these rabid environmentalists that drive their Priuses and are after everybody.
No, we call them prii. When they're in a pod like whales, we call them prii.
Okay, well, it amazes me that people that are so concerned, and that's a noble cause to be concerned about our environment, but to completely cut out the impact of immigration, and particularly illegal immigration. I traveled to the border with Center for Immigration Studies 2 times, and we went and saw the layup areas and the big trails where they come through, and the garbage, and it was just sickening. And so, where are the environmentalists when all of this is occurring?
Well, that's what I wanted to know. The very first interview I ever did with Fox News, when I was the leader, I was actually just a volunteer at the Minuteman protest in Arizona, and they asked me for footage, and I had taken it on my video camera. I don't know how they ever translated it to digital quality to put on television, but it's astonishing. And until you see it, it's hard to believe that tons and tons and tons of garbage could be dumped in one place and have to be cleaned up by the residents and concerned citizens of these border areas.
Well, they won't allow them to do that anymore because of the diseases that are coming in now. It used to be like Boy Scout troops would go and do this kind of stuff, and now they have special crews that go in first and remove the needles and all the disease stuff and the human waste and all of that, and clear the site before they can let others come in and just clear up the garbage.
Wow.
That's dangerous.
Hey, Cynthia, can we hold you over for another break?
Sure.
Okay. Hey, we're talking with Cynthia Kendall of Oregon. She's got a great story you won't want to miss. If you've been listening long to the Tim Donnelly Show, you know that we talk constantly about defending freedom and about defending our natural inalienable rights. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a partner of the Tim Donnelly Show. But more than that, they're on the front lines every day in Sacramento and all across the state, in the courts, defending your Second Amendment right. That is a natural right that the government merely acknowledged in the Second Amendment. If you value your freedom, then you need to join Firearms Policy Coalition. Become a member. I'm a member, and I'm happy to support an organization that is doing such an incredible job. Go to joinfpc.org. The Tim Donnelly Show sent you. Or go to timdonnellyshow.com and click on the FPC link to make it easy. But whatever you do, join today. FPC.org.
You need cooling, baby, I'm not fooling. I'm gonna sing.
Well, we don't really need cooling here in California. As a matter of fact, the globe is cooling. I know it's going to be news to the next global ice age, global warming, global climate change crowd. But their hoax and their fraud is being exposed. But right now, we are talking here at the Radio Free California Network with Cynthia Kendall, who headed up a successful effort to essentially turn a blue state red, white, and blue. And she did it with good old-fashioned tactics. Cynthia, how were you able, because a lot of people here in California have completely given up, how were you able to successfully overcome the perception that taking a stand against illegal immigration, a principled stand, which includes driver's licenses, as a security risk. It includes funding for education and a whole lot of other things. How were you able to be successful in a state where you guys are bluer than California, I think?
I think you're right. And that's an excellent question, and one that has been asked of me ever since November 4th of 2014. I think that what happened is when the bill was introduced in the Oregon legislature on April 2nd of 2013, something sort of snapped within our organization that this was just appalling what they were doing. And even going against what a prior Democrat governor had approved. And we testified against the bill. We knew that they could pass it. We came up with everything that we could, amendments, and they wouldn't listen. In less than a month, and on May Day of 2013, the governor signed the bill into law. Our organization decided that we were not worth our salt if we didn't do everything that we could to try and overturn this bill, and that was in the form of a citizens' veto referendum. So when I went to the May Day rally when he was signing the bill, I was carrying with me multiple copies of a press release saying, now that the governor has signed this bill, dear press, you need to know that we're going to be filing a citizens' veto referendum. And we managed to get on the front page of several large newspapers.
Nice.
With that headline, Governor signs driver's license bill, group plans to file referendums. So we caught the press wave, for the media wave, from the very beginning, and we played that at every opportunity that we possibly could. Jim Ludwig, who's the founder and past president of OFER, and I traveled the entire state from coast to coast, up and down, everywhere, speaking at everything from AFP and 912 and Republican meetings and Rotary and Kiwanis, everywhere we could get our foot in the door to talk about this and to distribute signature sheets for signature gathering. Fred Elbell of Elbell Consulting Services made our website in record time, and we were fortunate here in Oregon we can do online signature gathering. So we did.
Oh yeah, that's very helpful.
That's huge because we don't have to pay to print everything and mail everything, and the online signatures tend to have about a 98% accuracy rate. So it's a really good way to go. We doubled the record of online signatures that we collected, 10,700 online signatures. Everything that we could think of. And what I think is interesting in relation to you is that your name kept popping up. As I would call and shake everybody at all the national levels and say, what do I do? I've never done this before. How do I do this? And they said, well, you need to call Tim Donnelly. You need to talk to Tim Donnelly. He's running for governor. He's very busy, but you need to talk to him. And I tried calling you several times. I left messages. I never heard back from you. A couple weeks went by, and I thought, you're a busy guy. You're running your own campaign. What do you want to do with me? And one day I was coming home from the grocery store with my arms full of groceries, and the phone was ringing, and I came in breathless and answered the phone, and you said, you need to get an answering machine, young lady. This is Tim Donnelly. Get a paper and a pen. I'm going to talk. You're going to listen. And then for about a half an hour, you just spewed ideas and suggestions and advice and pitfalls to avoid and how to get what I needed and how to get what I wanted and how to be successful. And I was writing as fast as I could, picking up envelopes from wherever I could. I didn't have paper. And so all the back of our bill envelopes had all these notes all over them and everything. And you gave us so many great ideas that we put into action. And probably the best one was the drive-through signature gathering. Where we set up locations. We have great friends in radio here in Oregon, and we would get on the air and say, we're having this drive-through event here, and businesses loved to have us there. And we had one of our chief petitioners is a highway sign maker.
Oh, that always helps.
The company made us big signs, drive-through signature gathering, drive-through democracy is what we called it. And that was just phenomenal. Plus, everybody was looking, seeing as they were going by. Another thing we did was make business cards so that every time we'd get a signature from somebody, we'd hand them a business card with our website address on it and tell them to go home and tell their spouse or their girlfriend or whoever, if they're a registered voter, to go online and print out the single signer sheet and sign it and mail it in. So
I hope you also told them to donate at the same time.
We did.
Good.
We did, and I was really pleased. Our opposition outspent us about 11-1, and our contributions came in $5.25. We did have a matching grant, which was really good. And before I forget, I want your listeners to know that if they'd like to see our website, we've converted it into somewhat of a workbook for these other states that are fighting drivers' cars.
And I have...
It's protectoregondl.org.
Yes, and you can also find it at timdonnellyshow.com. I just put a solid link there, and excellent. I just posted up on Facebook. I grabbed a picture of you and Maria Espinosa, who has also been on the show with the Remembrance Project. And you guys have a flag in the background, which is great. And there's another lady with you. But you were not embraced by the Republican establishment in Oregon.
Oh, no.
They were terrified of what you were trying to do.
Well, I had the feeling all the time that even our supporters, and we had wonderful supporters, were sort of patting us on the head like, I really admire your effort, but you're not going to be successful. But we had an excellent opportunity in Oregon this past election to really make some conservative strides. And we went to every single candidate as their campaigns were unfolding and saying, this issue is polling really well. You need to talk about it. You need to call out the Democrats that put forth this legislation and challenge them on it. And we gave them all the background information, all the facts that they could possibly want. And only the candidates that addressed the issue square on won.
Wow.
The people that kept sidestepping and saying, well, it's a real hot issue, and I've got other things I can talk about. Our governor is one of them. The one, Dennis Richardson was running for governor, and I talked with him many times about, please bring this up. The guy you're trying to get out of office, who has now resigned in shame, you could use this against him very easily, and he wouldn't do it. And he lost by just a small amount.
Well, and here's what's so ridiculous, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you guys broke the story with the help of Lars Larson up there. You broke the story that these driver cards could be used to board airplanes as identification.
Well, we actually had the thinking that it could for the longest time, and I brought Derek Hernandez, is a Border Patrol Union Vice President for the entire Western United States. He'd be a good guy to have on your show, by the way. And he was an endorser for our efforts. Also, the sheriffs of Oregon and multiple law enforcement officers and legislators also endorsed us. And people can see that on our website. But I forgot what I was saying.
Well, I also am one of your endorsers after I found out that even though you didn't have an answering machine, you do have a website. And by the way, it is a good website. And we have it up at timdonnellyshow.com. Right now, we're going to take a break, but we're talking with Cynthia Kendall. She has done something that most people didn't think was even possible. We're going to get the rest of the story and then what she's doing next, right after this break, here at Radio Free California. If you want to call in with any questions, 323-746-TALK. We might let you on. Stay tuned. Hey, if you find yourself in my hometown of Twin Peaks, don't leave without stopping by the grill at the Antlers Inn. It's right in the heart of Twin Peaks. They serve dinner every night. They're right there at Highway 189 and Bear Springs Road. They have the best steaks, the best sushi. No matter what you have, make sure you call ahead for a reservation. 909-336-2600. 909-336-2600. And tell them Tim Donnelly sent you. Cynthia Kendall, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show. We were talking before the break, and if you're just tuning in, Cynthia Kendall fought a huge battle, including pretty much the entire political establishment, Republican and Democrat. Didn't think she had a chance. But you guys were victorious. I mean, you walked door to door. You were going out to businesses. You were doing drive-by democracy, drive-by signature gatherings to overturn a law that puts the public safety of Oregonians at risk, puts the public safety of the entire country at risk, ultimately, if you can board an aircraft with a document that simply codifies and creates a fraudulent ID.
That's correct. We, like I started to say, we suspected that would be the case, and it wasn't until Derek Hernandez, the Union Vice President for the Border Patrol of the Western United States, came as a guest speaker to one of our meetings. And he said, that driver's card that they're planning on issuing can be used to board a plane. And that just sort of launched it got Lars's attention. He contacted Politico or PolitiFact. Lars contacted the TSA, and they confirmed that it could. And just recently, I was debating Jeff Stone, who is the lobbyist for the Oregon Association of Nurseries, and he called me not a very nice name and said that I was very deceptive because that wasn't true. And I said, well, how you don't get to decide what the TSA accepts for people to get on the plane. You don't have a say in that. The TSA has a say, not you. And he said we were just trying to frighten people, but the fact is that card could have been used to board an airplane.
Oh, absolutely. I wrote an op-ed for Breitbart on that very subject, and I had to get one of my colleagues' husbands, who's the spokesman for TSA, and after much cajoling, eventually got him to admit, yes, we will be taking those for the next 2 years. So if a state creates one, like California has created a driver's license for illegals, and now, you know what they want to do now? The next step, they're going the opposite direction of you guys there. Now they want everyone who has a driver's license to be instantaneously, automatically, by computer registered to vote.
Oh, we're doing that as well. We just passed that law.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. That's where they got the idea. But you don't have driver's licenses for illegals there. Whereas,
no, we don't.
Whereas
You're
we did.
right.
Whereas we do. So it has a huge implication here in terms of voter fraud. But get back to, give us the 30-second synopsis of how you guys ultimately won this race, because then I want to go on to what you're doing next.
Well, we won by absolutely true grassroots conviction that we were not just going to try and win, that we were going to win. And as we began gathering steam and people started learning about what this was all about, it had a snowball effect, and everybody wanted in on it. And we were just thrilled with the number of volunteers. I sent out 865 packets that had signature sheets and instructions to people that would then take them and go to county fairs and events and all over this state.
Wow.
Just 134 different states had at least one request, or cities, had at least one request for signature packets. So,
but you guys did this with very little money. You did it on the ground. You did it with volunteers, not paid signature gatherers.
We did have some paid signature gatherers at the end, and we probably couldn't have done it without them. I would have to be completely honest about that. But it was only when we saw the ball was rolling. Now, it's important to remember that with the referendum, we only had 4 months to collect. We collected 77,000 signatures in 4 months. And
I have a chart. You won. You, in a blue state, you got 66%, 2/3 of the voters in a state that's what, something like 30% Republican?
Yeah, 29% Republican.
Okay.
That's absolutely right.
And so
what our saying is illegal immigration, it's not a right or left issue, it's a right or wrong
Well, and you,
not an issue of the right or left. It's an issue of right
Cynthia,
and
you understated your victory. I mean, it was unfair. You like stomped on the opposition because you engaged the people. And I'm looking at a flyer that you've created, and it says counties voting no versus counties voting yes. And it's hilarious because the entire state is purple. That's all the no votes. Then there's a little tiny green county up near Portland, right? Right up against the river there.
And the reality is that only the west side of that county passed it, and only by 10 points.
Well, that's astonishing. And as I go down the statistics, the no vote is 84% to 15% in Baker County, 71 to 28 in Clackamas County, 79 to 20 in Columbia, and on and on and on. And since this victory, you've had people saying, hey, what's next?
Absolutely. Well, one thing that, because it was very interesting, after we won, you know, as the joke says, the Republican wave stopped in Oregon. We lost everything in Oregon except this. And we got virtually no press coverage here in Oregon. They just say, here are the ballot measures, blah, blah, blah. And that was about it. But nationwide, we were in every newspaper, talk show. It was crazy. Probably 90% of our coverage came from outside the state. But the reality is that citizens very seldom get to vote on anything that has to do with illegal aliens or illegal immigration. And when they finally had an opportunity, that's what they said. And we take that map that you're looking at that's on our website, and we take it with us when we go to the Capitol and say, okay, let's talk about E-Verify. Let's talk about, you know, and really, you don't think your constituents would support this. And I shared a story with you when I went to speak in Harney County with Senator Ferrioli. He supported the driver's cards all the way through. And I sort of challenged him at the Lincoln Day dinner event, and I said, well, it's interesting. You wonder who you're working for when you supported the driver's card, and yet your constituents voted it down with almost 87% no vote.
Wow.
So who actually are you representing?
Well, and I heard, because you also stated that if the legislators and the elected officials will not do the work of the people, then the people will do the work of the legislators. But you got, as you were introduced, you got a standing ovation, and he couldn't buy 4 people to applaud him. Cynthia, we're out of time. We've been talking with Cynthia McKendall. Thank you for your work. Thank you for coming on. We'll have you back. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. Stay tuned.
We need a hero, someone to show us the way. We need a hero who speaks for the people and what we have to say. We still believe this land of the free is still America.
Well, certainly our previous guest, Cynthia Kendall, would qualify. She is an American hero for doing what most people didn't think was possible. She stood up for the citizens, for the people of the state of Oregon against the massive political establishment that was joined at the hip on the issue of illegal immigration, and she won. And, you know, that's should be instructive to those of us who are living behind enemy lines in a socialist state like California, because what I've noticed is so many people have given up. They've just dropped out. They mentally, they're burned, they're finished, they're toast, and they don't believe anything is possible, and that they don't believe that we will ever gain any control over this state. And what I mean by that, I'm not just talking about the issue of illegal immigration. I was talking to you earlier about this this leftist publication that for most American states, the recession never ended. And the only measure they use in this article is whether or not the government has enough money to cover their bills. Not whether or not the people have more money in their pockets, which really, in my estimation, is a much better measure of whether or not the recession has ended, wouldn't you say? The end of the article, they get to California. And they say, California Governor Jerry Brown said last week that an expanding economy has allowed a boost in proposed spending. Here's the part that is hilarious. It doesn't say they raise taxes every single year in the past decade, pretty much, sometimes twice a year, sometimes 3 and 4 times a year, depending on whether you're talking about the state of California and the county, and then your local municipality raising rates, fees, taxes, whatever you want to call it. It all comes down to money out of your pocket. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about the fact that for every dollar in increased revenues, the government of California spends $1.85 in new programs or restores funding to programs that they cut, so that the Marxist progressives who dominate the California legislature can get reelected. So basically, they steal from you, give to somebody else. This is called redistribution of wealth. And that's one way that they shore up their power base. They also take dictatorial control over natural resources like water. We see that the farmers that feed this state aren't considered to be people to be respected. They're considered to be people to be controlled. And so in the name of an emergency, a crisis, a water crisis, mind you, that was worsened dramatically. You could even say it was created by the government, because Arizona has the same climate, but they don't have the same problems. They don't have a water crisis in Arizona. As a matter of fact, they've got a legislature that actually cares about the citizens of their states. They care about the taxpayers. They said, hey, you can be on welfare for exactly 12 months for your entire life, and then you're not welcome to live off the taxpayers anymore, period. Deal with it. Yeah, that's tough talk. If we did that, you know what would happen to the budget of a state like California? Because it's not just the people who are getting checks. It's the fact that those people aren't working, so therefore they're never putting anything actually into the economy other than sales tax. It's also the massive number of bureaucrats who are on the expense side of the ledger who need to be hired in order to give out the benefits. Why do you think these massive unions support two things? They always support candidates who are in favor of a tax increase. They will fight tooth and nail against anybody that thinks that public sector unions are stealing too much money from the state of California and are legally bribing our politicians to increase their fiefdom. And by the way, I'm talking about the union thug leadership who bribe those who are in power. I'm not talking about the members. Hey, you're in a union, you got issues. Because in many cases, if you're conservative on any issue, if you actually believe in the Second Amendment, your union is working against you. If you actually believe in fiscal sanity, in living within your means, your union is financing the opposite of your beliefs. If just about every belief you hold, if you tend to be conservative in your beliefs, the public sector unions are working against you. And they're working to support people, especially if you're in a cop union. That's the part I don't get. Why cop unions hand all their money over to Democrats, and the Democrats disrespect them and diss them every chance they get. In case you hadn't noticed, it's the Democrats, it's the Marxists who are demanding that that the police put their hands up and their guns down. You know, I'm making a little bit of light of the hands up, don't shoot thing that never happened. By the way, I mean, have you seen that video of that mayor in Baltimore?
Which one?
Stephanie Rawlings, I forget the last part of her name, Reed or something. Well, you got to find it online and play it. She doesn't sound like a mayor. She doesn't sound like anybody who even has any sense of law enforcement. She's basically saying the evidence doesn't matter. And by the way, we're going to railroad these police and we have new evidence. And all the same things, if they were to happen to a black defendant instead of police officers, half of whom are black and half of whom are white. But if it were to happen to a black defendant, they would say that this person is being, there's a rush to judgment, they're being railroaded. I mean, the evidence shouldn't be changing every other day. You shouldn't be talking about the case publicly until you know all the facts. And even then, you have to be really careful not to prejudice the public. But it's as if everyone's taking a complete leave of their senses. They have no respect for the process whatsoever. And I noticed there was a shooting in Olympia, Washington, where a couple of unarmed black men, at least that's what's reported in the headline, were shot by police. And the riots are breaking out already. You have the Black Lives Matter crowd rushing there. Now, mind you, the Black Lives Matter crowd forgot to take a pit stop in Baltimore after the riots because black lives really don't matter to them, or they would have been fighting against the thugs in the streets who killed 8 people, who shot 19 people in 2 days just this past week. Crime is up. It's become an epidemic. They had an interview with one individual on TV last night, and he said, well, when the cops come in, they overreact, and when we push them back, then they just leave us alone, and it's a conspiracy. Well, no, it's not a conspiracy. Most blacks are the victim of other blacks, but the difference is the ones who are the victims are usually law-abiding Americans who actually care about their communities, who go to work, who are trying to make it in life. And the other ones who happen to be black are criminals and they're thugs. That's all. And I would say the exact same thing if it was white on white crime, or black on white, or white on black. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It matters whether or not you are a productive member of society or you're a thug. Thugs don't create anything. They don't pay any taxes. They don't do any good for anyone. They just prey on people. And the Black Lives Matter crowd could care less because they're just there to go after cops. And they say there's an epidemic, but they're ignoring the epidemic that is occurring in American cities that are dominated by Democrat policies and Democrat-controlled Marxists who have forced, in many ways, their communities to become more and more and more dependent on government. And we heard from Nick Ferguson, who was on yesterday. Wasn't he eloquent? Oh, I can't hear you. I think your mic's turned down.
He was amazing.
Yeah, when he said, I got chills when he said, if my mom, he said, first of all, he said, my mom's my hero. He didn't name any football stars or anybody else, which I've really respected, number one. Then he said, if my mom hadn't left the projects and left dependence on government and gotten a regular job and struggled, I wouldn't be where I am today. And when he talked about the struggle, we're literally talking about a man whose family, his mother was going to bed hungry so that the children could eat. That is a mother. That is a mama bear that cares about her cubs, that wants to see her kids be successful. And she did it against all odds. And I'm sure she got called a lot of names for doing that. But what she did is she produced a man who wants to give back to his community. She produced a man who became competitive on one of the most competitive stages in the world. And so when I speak against this acceptance of a lesser existence, which is exactly what Baltimore represents, if you really look at it. Because of the color of your skin, you're going to accept dependence on government, and government is the answer to every question. Well, you will always have riots. You will always have people who are unhappy because they're beggars. They're begging for somebody else to do what they should be doing for themselves. And that doesn't equal pride. That doesn't give you self-esteem. That doesn't make you happy at the end of the day that you did a good, hard day's work. And those black leaders who are there are cheating the residents out of what should be their destiny, which is the American dream. 323-746-TALK. If you have an opinion, we'll be right back after this break.
I really have a serious problem with people that touch the American flag because, it's when you go to my house, you drive by, every other week you'll see a different flag. I'm up in Wrightwood where, like right now, I'm sitting here looking at 5 flags flying. It's a beautiful city to live in because they have the flag everywhere. There's a reason why we have an American history that we have. And these people that think that they can, take it out on the flag, that blood, the red is what it's for. It stands for the people that have given their lives and done things in this country to make sure that they can have a right of freedom. We go over there and we fight for their rights to do these stupid things like desecrate our flag. That has nothing to do with anything we think about when we go out there, because that's not a freedom to go out there and destroy something that should be sacred in this country. And I don't care where you're at. I love going into stores out here, especially in Wrightwood. Flags in every store, flags almost in every yard. It's a place where you can go and you can actually see how much people love this country and respect it. And it's just sad when you hear about these little stupid college people that want to go out there, idiot people in California that run for office that think the flag should be taken away. And if they don't like the flag, go away, okay? Because we wear it when we go into combat, and when we come home, they give us one here, they give us one there, they bury us with one. And that's the greatest thing in the world for us is to have that flag, and we will protect it. And, the law might say that we can't do anything if you burn it, but it does say that if you cause a riot, you can go to jail, and I guarantee you burn it around me, any other vet, it's going to be a riot, and you will go to jail.
I'm Barack Obama, and I'm the #1 fan of the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hey, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show on the Radio Free California Network. We stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. 323-746-TALK is our number. That's 323-746-8255 for those of you who are driving and don't want to break the law and get pulled over on your way to wherever you're going. We know a lot of you are driving right now. And I'm sorry for what you're having to pay in gas prices, which are off the charts, thanks to a hidden gas tax in California that was enacted at the beginning of the year that sort of slid in on sleight of hand. You had OPEC make a move that in order to hurt domestic drilling in the United States and make it less profitable, because that's how you win a battle in the battleground of markets. I can't call it a free market, but it is an economic market for the commodity of oil. And they let the price of oil go into free fall, which hurt the domestic oil industry in the United States, but it was a boon to everyone who drives a lot. And you noticed it. When prices went down, you had more money in your pocket. When you had more money in your pocket, you could buy more cheeseburgers. You could buy whatever you want. That money was your money, and it was instantly available in your pocket when the price of a necessity like gasoline went down. It's the same as a tax cut. And it's hard for me to believe that the left has been so successful in teaching our students and the next generation, who then become the journalists. They're not journalists. That's a joke. They're just news readers, and they're news cut and pasters. And they cut and paste the same propaganda from the same few sources. And next thing you know, it becomes the truth that if you cut taxes, you're racist. If you cut taxes, you are hurting the little guy. Well, the governor of Kansas, Sam Brownback, cut taxes, and it was like a shot of adrenaline in the heart of the Kansas economy. But what was interesting is the most significant impact was in unemployment. In March of 2013, unemployment stood at 5.5%. From 1998 to 2012, Kansas ranked 38 in private sector job growth, according to BLS statistics. In 2013, after the tax cuts were put in place, tax cuts that the LA Times and the New York Times called ruinous, unemployment dropped to 4.2%. And they went from 27th place in 2013 to 14th in 2015. And when you look at that, when you look at what the impact was, the bottom line was what you didn't have to give to the government was available as a pool of capital for individuals to use to start businesses and to spend as they saw fit and to invest where they saw fit. And they were better allocators of capital than the government every single time. And the people as a whole that work for a living benefit. And that is the other side of the story. That's the story of the 53% who work and who make everything and pay for everything. And that, we just want you to know here at the Radio Free California Network, we got your back. And we will always cut through the propaganda to bring you the truth. We are in the home stretch, almost. In mere seconds, we're going to have to take a break. And when we come back, 323-746-TALK. We'll take your calls on any topic. Fair game. Freedom Friday here. 323-746-8255.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Because we are the prey. Yes, we are the prey. We'll fight you in name, the name of the fray. We are the U.S. of A. For those unaware, that flag is still there. It's our future to save this land of the brave, the U.S. of A. Oh, say, just that star-spangled banner, yeah.
I wish we could end the show with that entire song played in its entirety. We got permission right on air from that amazing band. They're playing tonight at the Agua Caliente Casino down in Rancho Mirage. And I don't know if it's too late to get tickets, but they were on our air. They're amazing, a patriot rock band, and what fitting music to start the pathway toward Memorial Weekend here at the Radio Free California Network. And we are going to switch gears here a little bit. The Radio Free California Network studios are located in the high desert of California. That's a big part of our listening area. And we want to take a moment and honor a local hero. We have his mom on the phone, Lisa. It's Lisa Hayes, right?
Yes.
Lisa,
hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for all you do to be a voice of, the true public.
Well, I'm doing my part. You were doing your part. You were just feeding people that don't have resources, which is why you couldn't come on till the 5 o'clock hour. But
correct.
Thank you for your service to the community, and thank you for spotlighting your son. Now, tell us his name.
His name is James Smith.
James Smith, and he's an Army Ranger, right?
Correct.
Okay, and of all the Rangers in the country, he was in a competition recently where he came in 15th out of the entire service.
Correct. It's called the Best Warrior Competition, and they do it every year at Fort Benning, and it's just an amazing 3-day competition, and there's very little rest, very little food, but lots of strenuous activity. So, and out of the 50, it was either 51 or 54 teams, it's a two-man team that started 20, I believe it was 26 teams finished, and he finished 15th with his buddy.
Wow. I mean, that is really, well, congratulations to him. Congratulations to you. You got to be a proud mama.
Oh, you have no idea.
And
I'm proud.
Now, do you get to see him very often?
No, on average once a year, but sometimes it's 2 years before I see him, and he's been to the Middle East twice in the past 5 years. So, I don't get to see him very much.
Well, we
thanks to Facebook and texting, I get to see pictures and stuff. We keep in touch, but the personal contact's not there. So.
Yeah, there's a tremendous sacrifice made by the families of those who serve that is, I don't believe, appreciated enough by the American public. I think there's a lot more that we can do, and
that is absolutely true. And you know what? He married a wonderful woman, and she's from the high desert. I think she was born and raised here. Amanda and she's just a wonderful wife, a wonderful mother. She's given me 2 beautiful grandchildren, and I think, not to say being a Ranger's a piece of cake, but I think being an Army wife is pretty tough, and she's holding her own. So thank you, Amanda. Love you. But,
well, we are grateful for his service. We're also grateful for your service as a family. You guys are there to support him, but you also need the public to support you. And I want to say, I'm not an assemblyman anymore, but I kind of feel like California has adopted me as their assemblyman. For all those out there who don't have a voice, who feel like nobody is standing up and fighting, I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us who are grateful Americans. We don't stomp the flag. We might stomp those who stomp the flag, but we don't stomp the flag. We honor it.
Correct.
And we respect it because we understand it as a symbol of freedom, but it's also that it's the symbol of what your son and my son and many others are out there fighting for. And, my son is not in the Rangers or anything like that. He's in the Coast Guard, but he's overseas right now. And you live with the emails. What I discovered is you send them pictures. It says a lot more than the words. And that is very helpful, but it's never quite the same as having them there where you can hug them and enjoy a Memorial weekend where you might have a barbecue.
Yeah, face-to-face conversation with your baby, even if you're just sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing. It's like there's that connection, And your son's gone right now, and it's your oldest, right?
No, we have 2 older boys. My wife when we got married, we had a prefab family because she had been widowed, so she had 2 older boys. And so we just became a family. It took a couple years, let me tell you. We knocked heads for a little while. But he was our first son that we had together. And so it's that's a pretty emotional thing.
Yeah.
When you send a family member, off to sea or off to war. And I want to make it clear. Even though my son, he serves in the Coast Guard, which is not nearly as dangerous as what your son is facing and many others, but there are dangers, and there are concerns because they are flying the flag of our country, which is a threat to evil and to tyrants and to despots and dictators all over the world.
Correct. They're afraid of freedom, and they don't like democracy, and that's what we stand for. So,
well, we're grateful to have had a moment to talk with you, Lisa, and give our congratulations to your son. And when he does come back to town, maybe if you'll share a moment, we'd love to meet him and maybe even buy him a cheeseburger.
And do a barbecue. Hey.
But
there's I don't know when he's gonna come out. He mentioned he might send my grandson out for summertime, which I think would be absolutely exciting. But if I can't have my son, I'll take my grandson.
There you go. Now, how old are your grandkids?
One is 8, and the other is 1.
And how?
And the 1-year-old's a handful.
The 1-year-old's a handful. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Now, how is the 8-year-old coping with his dad being gone?
Well, no, he's currently in the States, but actually he's going to leave, I think, for a week to go to Normandy at the end of this month for the ceremonies down there that they're having.
Sure.
And then he's going to be back and forth in and out of the house for like a week at a time, a month at a time, and such, because that's just what the Army does with the families. He's coping, as best as the boy can. They've moved I don't know how many times since he's been born, but that's just part of Army life. And I think that, his mom, she gives a lot of support to the kids and helps them adjust, and I just think that's such a it's a good role to help keep your family unit together, because when it's all boiled down, it's the family unit that needs to stay together. And they're very centered. So she helps him adjust. And, he's a little kid, so it's hard and it has its challenges. But, when Daddy comes home, they do the things that they do, and they try to get back into gear and just make it about them. So.
Well, once again, on behalf of us and our listening audience and Californians and Americans in general, we just want to say thank you to you, Lisa. Thank you for we'd like to give a shout out to James and also to his family, to Amanda, and say happy Memorial Day. And we're grateful for your sacrifice.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. If you don't mind, can I mention the rodeo that's going to be going on? I don't have too many details.
Yes, please.
It's coming up this October, and I don't know if it's the first week or second week, but it's with the National Police Rodeo Association. They're helping put it all together, and it's going to benefit the Wounded Warriors Foundation. And all the money that they receive is going to go to the local vets community and the Wounded Warrior community. It's going to be a family activity, family rodeo.
And where is it going to be?
That's actually going to be at the Maverick Stadium in Adelanto.
Oh, okay.
Field. So, the mayor out there is trying to get lots of different activities going on in Maverick Stadium, and this is just one of them that I thought was
well.
Awesome.
This is one that touches our hearts here, and we would be happy once you have more information to not only broadcast some information about it, but also put a link up on our site, because anything we can do to support those who have put everything on the line for us, we're all about that. Hey, we got to go here, but thank you for coming on, and once again, thank you to James and his family for your service to our country.
Thank you, Tim, and thanks for all your voice. I really appreciate that. You're awesome. God bless you, Tim.
Thank you. God bless and Godspeed. 323-746-TALK. If you want to say something, maybe I'll let you. I don't know. I may hog the time at the end. Final segment coming up.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets would glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave.
As we close out the show before the Memorial Weekend, I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. One of the greatest moments of my life and one of the greatest honors that I have ever enjoyed was when I was able to place the wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And it was just, there are no words that can describe the feeling and the respect that is engendered by just standing there. I have a photograph of that. I have a memory that I will never forget. And that's what Memorial Day is about. So we are going to close the show with Madison Rising's rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. take a moment to honor those who have paid with their lives the ultimate sacrifice. Say thank you to all those who have served. Take a minute to thank a vet. Thank you. We have a veteran right here. And I want to thank all of those who have made this show possible. My wife, for letting me do this. Bethany Nosko, the Noskinator, who is a Navy veteran, for being an extraordinary producer. Cassie Cassidy, our intrepid guest booker. John and Sean, who make everything work. And you, the listener. Now, go out there. Have a safe and productive and happy Memorial Day weekend. God bless you. God bless this great country. And Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show out. Hey, if you like what you've been hearing on the Tim Donnelly Show, then support it. If you own a business, we have a tremendous audience, not only on air, but also online. And we've got a great social media presence. And you can participate in all of that by simply picking up the phone and calling 760-244-4444. That's the office line to Bethany, who can schedule you to come in and record your own commercial, or you can send us a script and I'll read it. Whatever you do, you got to act now, because your future customers are my loyal listeners.